Welcome to another episode of Amazing Greats. It's Rick Hansen here. This time around, we have the opportunity to experience some exciting and encouraging work of the next generation. It's not all about TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat and the latest video game. In our conversation with Isiah Lacombe, I think you'll agree there's a lot to be hopeful for from our young friends as they find their role in our future. We are here today to chat with a young man. As a matter of fact, Isiah Lacombe, welcome to the show. You are the youngest guest we've ever had on the show. And that's exciting for me because you're going to bring some new, fresh ideas and some fresh perspective on not only your life journey, but on your faith journey. So welcome, Isiah.
Well, thank you for the welcoming.
Cool. What are we going to, we're going to, first of all, I think just to kind of let our audience know right from the get-go, what makes you such a great guest on this show. And that is your accomplishments. You have done some amazing things at such a young age, starting at like 14 years old, right? So at 14, you were called to do something. Tell a little bit about how you came to your first project.
Yes, well, there was actually a previous guest on this podcast who kind of got me into this work that we're going to talk about, which is my grandma, Debbie Maycomber, who you had on before. But she raised everyone in my family with a mindset of generosity and giving. And so when I was growing up, we always, found opportunities to give back to our community, and a lot of that was through World Vision, which I don't know if she talked about that, but that's kind of been my avenue of finding a route for generosity. And when I was 14, I went to World Vision's kind of national conference where they talk about what's going on in the world, just in extreme poverty, people suffering from having no access to clean water or health care. And what I really struck on with is what they're doing about it, because, it's easy to hear about problems in the world, but how to solve it is I think, far more inspiring, the story. And one of my now friends who runs World Vision's clean water program talked about how it just costs $50 to give someone access to clean water for the rest of their life. And
Wow.
so I know $50 changes someone's life forever. And so once I heard that really set me down this rabbit hole of collecting $50 as many times as I could, really.
So this was all part of what they call the Clean Water Project, right? And
Yeah.
when you started out, you set a goal, how much money you wanted to raise and how that money would be spent. Tell us a little bit about that. So at 14 years old, instead of doing a paper route and instead of doing an after work or after school work at the grocery store, you engaged in this amazing volunteer fundraising project, collecting money for clean water in
Rwanda. Yeah.
Rwanda. Yes.
So what's kind of special about Rwanda is part of World Vision's big plan is giving everyone everywhere they work clean water forever. And so that's a lot of people. And so part of that is doing it country by country so that you kind of knock off different goalposts along the way. And so back in, I think it was 2018, when I went to this conference, Rwanda was the first country they wanted to do this in. And they, had to reach, I think, 1 million people with access to clean water. And so my kind of idea of how to help was to raise $25,000, which would provide enough money to build one well. And I didn't know how I was going to do that. And I
Yeah.
never raised a dollar in my life, but I just felt compelled to do something because there was an avenue to do it.
So how did you go about doing that? Was it basically donations, or did you do car washes, or how did you raise the money? And you, just to kind of to shed light on the story, you did raise the $75,000, right? And how did you do it?
Yeah, it started out as a $25,000 dollar goal, and
Oh, yeah.
grew out of that. But I had no clue how I was going to do it when I started. I just had this idea, and then I realized, oh, I actually need to do this. And so it really just started out by telling people I knew about it, and kind of just like this, telling people about my passion for it, and how it's just $50 per person. And then it grew to using different networks. We go to the same church, talking about it at church, um, sharing it on my family's social media, just reaching as many people as I could with this message, and importantly, how they can help. It's just $50. It's a very simple thing, and an easy way to make an impact.
And I kind of jumped ahead. I kind of spoiled the ending to this story because I said the $75,000, but your original goal was $25,000, which is amazing for a 14-year-old kid to try to do. But it did pivot into something beyond that, right?
Yes. So yeah, like you said, we started out with 25,000. And one of the great things we found is that a lot of people who were inspired by this passion for clean water, but didn't necessarily want to just, fulfill the campaign without any sort of journeys, said that they would come along and match it. And so we had two couples who, one early on before I raised a dime, and one partway through the campaign, who said, if you complete this, we're going to match it in its entirety. And so once we hit that goal, it ended up tripling.
Wow. So 3 wells in Rwanda, saving literally thousands of lives at that point. Um, did and you ended up going to Rwanda, right?
Yeah, so that was part of the idea from the get-go, because a lot of members in my family have gone on, they call them vision trips. It's kind of their version of a mission trip. And it's when I knew I wanted to get involved with work at World Vision, I knew I wanted to see it firsthand. And so in the middle of the campaign in around 2019, we got to go to Rwanda and visit villages that had access to clean water and villages that didn't have access to clean water, and just see the difference.
Yeah. What was that like? I mean, here you were a kid from Gig Harbor, Washington, going to just a real third world country. What were your first impressions? What did you think about being in the midst of all of that?
It made all the things I talked about on the campaign very personal and real, because I talked about people who were, kids dying of disease, and suffering some of the worst things possible. And then I went to Rwanda, and it was no longer kind of a talking point. It was a reality that I was facing. And there was a few times where it really got pretty emotional, of people telling me their testimonies and what they have to go through on a daily basis.
And you ended up being baptized in Rwanda, right?
Yeah, so that's the faith aspect of this is really pretty important, especially since I went into this not knowing how to raise money. It took a lot of faith to
Yeah.
hope that this was going to work out. And you know, as the campaign was having success, it really just and also just seeing the impact that all of this work has in Rwanda and across the world just solidified the fact that I wanted to be baptized. And I thought there was no better place to do it than in Rwanda itself, a place that had just so firmly strengthened my faith.
Who was it? Who now you've become quite close with a gentleman by the name of Randy Haacke, who is with World Vision, and he was kind of your World Vision envoy, right? He's the guy that from World Vision that kind of helped put all this together. Yeah, is
Yeah,
that true?
yeah, Randy Hackey.
Hackey, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
he works for World Vision, and he's really an incredibly inspirational person, just a fantastic person to know. But he's really mentored me on this campaign, and just showed me the ropes of really World Vision and philanthropy. And so when we asked him, hey, can I get baptized on this trip to Rwanda, he said, well, yeah, but there's not going to be any, pastor on the trip or anyone to do it. And I said, well, I want you to do it. You're the person who's helped me so much in this. And so yeah, he baptized me in Rwanda.
Oh wow, that made it even more special. I'm sure of it. In what water body of water was it in? Like a river, a lake?
Yeah. So one of the things that was kind of a realization for us was, if I wanted to be baptized in Rwanda, but um, part of this is that it's dangerous to actually be in the water itself, bodies of water.
Yeah.
That's drowning and pretty dangerous creatures, um, crocodiles and stuff. And so we actually, instead of taking that route, we kind of did a symbolic version, and I was baptized at a water kiosk, which is what we were providing money for in the campaign.
Okay. So these kiosks that you're talking about, basically that's a well with a spigot at the top, and they pump the
Yeah,
spigot, and that's the fresh, clean water comes out. Is
yeah,
that
that
basically
that
it?
is that's what we're providing for, and that's what people are going to, instead of getting water from basically just a hole in the ground.
What's interesting to me and what's kind of inspirational for me is that it didn't stop there. So many people would say, "Well, I did it, done that," and they move along with their lives. But you were called to do something even beyond that. And tell us a little bit about how that story came together.
Yeah, well, the campaign ended right about when coronavirus virus started.
Okay.
And so there was kind of just this, obviously giant shutdown, everything changes. And, I didn't know exactly what was going to happen, what we were going to do. And as it progressed, it just became apparent that there wasn't the infrastructure in places like Rwanda and other countries around the world to handle this pandemic. Not only do they not often have clean water, but they don't have basically any medical attention to help with this. And so that was where I got a text from Randy, and he said, "Hey, we're going to get this group together. It's going to be about 13 people, all my age, and we don't know exactly what we're going to do, but we want to try and do something to alleviate these problems from coronavirus in places like Rwanda." And so that kind of led me down this new journey and campaign at World Vision.
And that was to create healthcare clinics, but this time not in Rwanda. It was another country in Africa. Where was that project based?
Yeah, so kind of going back a few steps, um, we we spent a what this was a we call it the Next Gen Network, and so it's a group of, like I said, people my age, and we didn't know what we were going to exactly do and what we were going to focus on, but we just knew we wanted to have a group where we could come together and try to solve things, because we'd all done certain things at World Vision or just other groups on our own. And so when we got together, we spent a lot of time just building the foundation of a group that can handle certain problems throughout the world. And that happened about last year in October. And once we had spent a good amount of time just building that foundation, we got three options from the kind of leaders at World Vision who are helping us in this. And they said, for your first campaign, you can either do a $12,000 kind of hand pump well. You can do a $25,000 area development program, which is what I did in Rwanda, or you can do a healthcare facility in Zambia. And I think, at least for me, it immediately clicked that the Zambia program was going to be the best option for us. And it was also the craziest option. It's $125,000. I don't even know how I got through the Rwanda campaign. How are we going to do 125,000? And it just, we all kind of individually processed our options and thought about it, and we came together, and it was a unanimous decision that we were going to do this $125,000 healthcare campaign in Zambia.
And it was based on three criteria that you kind of were operating on, right? Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
So uh, what was important for me, at least, is I wanted to make sure that whatever we did, it pushed us as a group. Yeah, I didn't want to have a campaign that we could do in a week, or I wanted it to really force us to work together, because that was what this was about. This wasn't about in people, individually going and doing that thing. It was really a group project, and so to make that kind of have to happen, we had to do something outside of our reach. I also wanted to make a statement to World Vision. This is kind of a subgroup of World Vision, but they didn't know, is this group serious, or is this something we really want to invest in? So I wanted to make sure that we got on their radar, so they knew we weren't messing around. And then the last thing, which I think is probably most important, is I wanted to pick a group or a goal, and I think everyone in the group agreed, that was just so fantastic and so out there that even all of us combined weren't going to be able to do it without, I think the quote was, God filling in the gaps. And so, we were going to have to put a lot of faith that he was going to, come in and help us complete this goal. And that was what the $125,000 campaign did.
And for those people that maybe are not real familiar with World Vision, just to underscore, World Vision is huge. I mean, it's worldwide. They do wonderful things all over the world. So when you're saying you wanted to kind of break through and be seen by the folks at World Vision, it's kind of what you were working toward. And I love the glorifying God aspect of it, which was the idea that we picked something that we can't do alone. We need to lean heavy on the Lord to make it all come together. That's spectacular. So how did that project go? So you got now you got something that's a real challenge, and you now have a group of folks together all working on the same thing, and this is all done on Zoom, right, because of COVID?
Yeah, so most of us have never met in person. It's just been through Zoom, and it's difficult enough to work together as a group in person, and it definitely was difficult just really connecting and getting to know people. But what was great about our goal is that it really forced us to. We didn't have an option of, were we going to do this effectively as a smooth team? We really had to, and that's what ended up happening. We formed into different committees and started campaigning and doing everything we really could. And I think we really started off on a good note, because even before we really started campaigning, we had a couple who came along and said, we really love what you're doing, and said that they were going to match the campaign, which is, a good sign, because that's what happened with the Rwanda campaign. And so it was just really great to see that we had this fantastic motivator to get going. But it also put on the pressure of, now we really do have to do this. There's no backing out now. And so, we really got into our groove and started doing everything we could to raise money.
Tell me a little bit about this group. The Next Gen group is it folks your age from all over the state or all over the world, or are they mostly in your community, or where do they come from?
So the group is national. So it's there's quite a few people in kind of Washington area, but it's all throughout the country. All over.
Do you meet regularly? Do you have other projects you're working on?
Yeah, so we're kind of in celebration mode, because, spoiler alert, we did hit our goal. So we're in celebration mode, but we're moving on to kind of what's next for our group. And for me, what was important about the goal, getting on World Vision's radar, is my hopes for this Next Gen network, which is to really expand, because we are a national group, but it's great because we get people from all over the country. But my vision is really a whole bunch of more local groups. And so that's what I'm trying to work towards, is expanding this and localizing it so that it can be in person, and it can be just more community focused.
So let's just jump back a quick. I did get ahead of myself a little bit. So that you reached your goal, and that was just recently, right? Within the last 60 days.
September 30th.
September 30th. And there was a period of time where you were a little bit concerned that you may have a difficult time.
Yeah, we
Tell us about that.
I had a moment where I thought we might have overstepped our boundaries with this goal, and I knew that was going to happen. And even though I knew it was going to happen, it still was pretty scary because we had to raise 125,000, and we had to do it. We really did have to do it by September 30th. That was our deadline, and that was, the last time where this couple would have been able to match it. And so it wasn't an arbitrary deadline, it was real. And we got to like September 10th and we had raised 106,000, which is great. Like, I was really impressed with our group and just everyone. The fact that we did that was amazing, but it wasn't our goal. And so we kind of had a moment where we, got in a Zoom and said, we got to kick it into gear and we got to do something because we're not there yet. And at least for me, that was a moment where I started making those calls and sending out those emails where maybe I wasn't gonna, ask that person because that might be awkward, or I kind of just put that to the side and said, if they're interested, I got to know. And so that was what happened for me, and that happened for a lot of people in the group, where that was that getting out of our comfort zone and putting our faith in God and saying, hey, please, this is the time. There's no moment like the present to fill this in. We got 20 days to raise $20,000.
So is the last dollar raised on September 30th, or did you get ahead of that a little bit?
I think it was raised like 5 days before. So it really came down to the deadline. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that couple matched that. So now your 125,000, which was an amazing goal, became 250, and that wasn't the end of it either, right?
No. So we had kind of this crazy turn of events that happened all around September, where we just had a whole bunch of people who I guess, heard the urgency of our call and said, hey, we're going to get involved. And we ended up raising actually in total around $420,000.
That's so amazing. Do you kind of pinch yourself now and say, what? How did we do that? Right?
Yeah. I still don't even know. I don't even understand it. It's a pretty crazy, it's incomprehensible, really.
Yeah. That is so cool. The scripture verse that I was kind of thinking about when we decided to get together to talk about this it was James 2:14. It says, if people say they have faith but do nothing, their faith is worth nothing. And James is kind of known for being pretty abrupt and pretty straightforward, and that kind of lays it out pretty good. But you guys chose to do something to show your faith, and what an encouragement for all of us to say, yeah, we can do this stuff. It just takes the motivation and God's grace. And so applause to you. A celebration well deserved.
To the group and all the glory to God on this, really.
Yeah. I'm going to, by the way, in our show notes here, I'm going to list the names of all of the group. And I think we'll have a picture on the video version of this to show a picture of all the folks. Because you're our local guy and you're the guy that we know. But I know that everybody put their heart into it, and really it took a team to make this all come together. So we want to make sure and acknowledge them as well.
Yeah.
So
I'm representing a fantastic group, and I mean, they really just inspire me in everything they do. They're incredible. Yeah.
Very cool. So, and now I know a little bit about your story, but I want you to share your Christian story with us a little bit, because I know that you came from a really solid foundation of followers of Jesus. Your grandma, like you talked about, Debbie Maycomer, and your mom Adele, and your dad, all were a foundation for a great love of Jesus. But I think everybody, even though they're kind of schooled at a young age to go to church and learn to read the Bible and all that, there's a moment that it becomes real personal. that there's a relationship with Jesus that develops. Can you share that with us?
I think there's kind of like two different Christian experiences, and there's someone who was born into Christianity like myself, and then there's someone who discovers it. And when you discover Christianity, it seems like there's this moment where it clicks. But when you're born into it, it's kind of deciding, is this for me? And so that was really my question growing up. Is I know, I was raised into a Christian family, and it was just, is this what I believe? Is this something I have faith in? And so that was really what I had to think about throughout, my years growing up. And it's still growing up, but I'm pretty firm in my faith at this point. But yeah, that's what I had to struggle with, and just going through schooling and facing all these questions.
Yeah, and there's so many at your age. There's so many distractions, worldly distractions. There's socialization. Making friends and being a part of clubs and all of those things that are human things. And sometimes, and in my case is the case, tend to put your religion, your faith aside for all the things that are going on. In your superficial world, if you will. So it's kind of special at your age to come to that realization and to mature in your faith at such an early age. So applause to that as well. Is there times in your life where you felt God's presence beyond these two campaigns, and I'm sure within these two campaigns as well, but can you share God's involvement, engagement in your life in a specific moment somewhere along the way?
I don't know if I can point to a super specific moment, but maybe the campaigns are kind of that moment where there is that. But I think maybe in other people I've met, just seeing their strength and because of their faith through hard times. Some of that was in Rwanda. Really, there's no people with stronger faith than the people of Rwanda. Obviously went through a horrific genocide 25 years ago. And one of the things that I witnessed on that trip was just this very admirable reconciliation that's occurred there. What made the genocide really such a horrific thing is that it was often between family members and friends and neighbors, divided on ethnic lines. And what we saw when we went there is people who had said, we can overcome this, and we're going to overcome this. And reconcile with each other. And it was just one of those things that is outside of just our human capacity. It just shows that there has to be something else in play. It was just too incredible to overcome something that horrific without a little bit of inspiration.
Then the flip side of that question, and sometimes is even more challenging to answer, and if you don't have an answer, it's okay too. But is there times when you've prayed for something and it didn't happen? Something where it was maybe a faith challenge for you? Is there anything specific along those lines, or at your young age, maybe not? But
Yeah.
do you have a thought there?
I think one of the things I've realized is that it's not always that my prayers won't come true, but what happens is better in a different way. I've had a lot of those moments, and campaigns are a good example. I was hoping for 25,000 and ended up with a $75,000 campaign, or I was hoping for 125,000 and ended up being a $400,000 campaign. And so I think just because I've had those experiences, I'm pretty okay with not getting what I want, because I realize that there's a bigger plan out there. And so maybe what I'm, looking for isn't necessarily what's right.
Mm-hmm. Very insightful. So are you do you have any plans to go to experienced the building of the care centers in Zambia?
So that's kind of what we're talking about as a group. Is we don't know if it'll be necessarily in Zambia, but we do want to travel to the field just to experience it as a group. And I mean, before putting the cart before the horse, we really just want to meet together in
Yeah.
person because we haven't all met before. So, but yeah, I think traveling to the field will be part of that.
Tell me what is, if there's a vision, or what the vision is for the next gen group.
So yeah, I mean that's my vision. I don't know exactly what will end up happening, but um, to get to that point, we really are focusing on just what is our mission. What exactly is this group? Because we've done this campaign and we've talked about it, but what would this look like for a community in you know whichever town that doesn't know any of us? What is going to be the thing that unites them and makes them a next gen group? And so that's what we're focusing on right now, is just kind of setting this foundation for a localized group of next geners, as we'd say, to spark some sort of change.
Are you the only one that's local to your area, or are there other folks that you knew prior to this group getting together?
I did know a couple of people in the group, but no one actually from our area. There's not that many. There wasn't that many young kids at World Vision, so I knew most of them, and a few of them were in the group, but a lot of the people I never met before.
Are you involved in Young Life or any of the other Christian youth organizations yourself?
I'm not involved in Young Life, though I have gone with our church up to their different camps before, but I'm not directly part of it.
Okay. So you personally are, you're now 17. I don't think we mentioned that earlier on. You're now 17th with the second campaign behind you. What's your personal plans? You're going to school now and you're planning on college?
Yeah, so I'm applying to colleges right now, which is the stress of applying to colleges has only been lessened by the stress of the $125,000 campaign. It puts it into perspective. But yeah, that's what I'm focusing on now, and figuring out where do I want to go.
Gotcha. Do you have an idea? Kind of know where you are, what kind of field you want to be in, or what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah, so my plan, kind of building off this passion for change and what really is justice, has brought me to pursuing a career in law. So I would like to become an attorney.
I'd love to know your perspective of the people that your age. What's the positive aspects of the next geners, and are there some negatives?
Yeah, well,
I know that's putting a lot on your
yeah,
shoulders. Yeah.
yeah, no pressure. I'd say I have a lot of hope for my generation. I'm kind of a natural optimist. Kind of goes with the work I've gone into, but there's a lot of issues that seem to coalesce right now in time, that my generation is struggling with. And so I think that really what I've seen just in my friends and people my age really around the world is lacking a purpose and not knowing, what is our role in this world. And so, and lacking a purpose, but also seeing all this kind of chaos around us that seems, unsolvable. And so, my hope and why I've partnered with World Vision and started this or co-founded this Next Gen Network is to provide an opportunity for purpose and for change making. But I mean, I really think that is probably the biggest struggle right now, is finding out, how are we going to alleviate all of these problems that just seem to keep piling up.
Yeah. Can you explain to us, your awareness, or what world vision? I guess the question is how can the rest of us help facilitate the good work that World Vision does? Is there a way we can acknowledge their work and contribute as either a volunteer or financially?
I mean, World Vision is a giant organization, so there's really an unlimited amount of ways to help. But one of the things that I would say is probably best is maybe, if you have kids or grandkids, getting them involved with it somehow. That was what helped with me. And so I think, looking at the different opportunities World Vision has, child sponsorship, or they have kind of a yearly gift catalog where you can pick out things to provide to people throughout the world, using those as an opportunity to get your kids or grandkids involved, maybe sponsoring a child in their name, or letting them go through and pick something. That seems to be a pretty good way to both, benefit the work that World Vision does, but also get the next generation thinking about philanthropy.
And it's all available on the website? You can just go to the website and find ways to get involved. And I'm sure they have a catalog.
Yeah.
And so, I'll put all this in the show notes too here with the show, but go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't necessarily point to it for you, but I think if you just went to worldvision.com, you'd be able to find, or .org, a whole bunch of different opportunities they have, and probably a lot of local things. I've found that people, want to do things in their community because, everyone's community is struggling, and there's a lot of opportunities to directly help people who need it right around where you live.
Very cool. I really appreciate the time you spent with us, Isiah. You are just a true inspiration, and what a wonderful guy you are. And I love your family. And I thank you so much for taking the time. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that we should be talking about before we come to an end here? Anything that you'd like to share that I haven't asked about?
We've already said it, but I'll just say it again. The people I work with at this Next Gen Network are, they are fantastic, and they pushed me and made me think about philanthropy and get outside of my comfort zone in ways that I haven't before. So I just want to thank them personally for helping me explore this with them.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you, Isiah. God bless you. Keep on working. And next time around when we talk, maybe there'll be something else we can talk about, a new campaign. I know you don't want to talk about that right now, but somewhere along the line, I'm sure you're not going to sit idle. You're going to be doing something. So we want to know about that. Thank you, and God bless you, Isiah.
Thank you.
Wow, pretty exciting stuff to see this next generation emerge with a positive outlook, lofty goals, and a solid faith. Check out the show notes for the names of all of the Next Gen group working on behalf of World Vision, and also a link to the World Vision website where you can learn more about how you can help make things better. Until next time, God bless.